Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to another edition of Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and we're recording in the studio at Hatch in downtown Fairhope, and we, as always, appreciate Rick Miller allowing us to be here until our studio one day in the deep, dark, distant future, Carrie, may or may not be done. So, well, it's done. We just can't get in there because of COVID, but that's a story for another day. So, anyway, our guest today is Sam Coppels, and she is the communications director at Daphne Utilities. And so, Sam, we appreciate you being here with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so the communications director at Daphne Utilities. Daphne Utilities is a decent sized operation here on the Eastern Shore in Baldwin County. So, what exactly does that involve, and how does one go from being a graduate of South Alabama to being the communications director for a large utility?
Well, it's quite funny, actually. My father-in-law found the position in the Courier, and it was for customer relations liaison at the time for Daphne Utilities. And I kind of took it as customer service, and I was like, absolutely not. I did not want to do that for a utility. But after reading the job description a little more in depth, I was like, yes, this is something I definitely wanted to do. At the time, I was working in hotels, which I loved, but the hours and the pressure is a lot in hotels. Not sure if y'all know that. But so I interviewed, I tracked the people down. I stalked them a little bit on LinkedIn until I got an interview, and I got the job. And I since have moved up and had a title change. It's the communications manager. So I love it. You know, it's interesting because I don't see myself outside of utility work, and I couldn't see myself inside of utility work. So it's an interesting transition. I started in, I guess, 2014. So it's been almost 7 years now. And I do internal communications, external communications. I plan our community events. I run our Facebook or all of our social accounts. And I just love it.
And for people who aren't familiar with the geography and where we're located, we're on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. So I've got to imagine that your job becomes immensely more difficult when either a hurricane is coming, people think a hurricane is coming, a hurricane has come and has blown through and has, knocked power out and that kind of thing. So that's, I would think, a unique aspect of your job that maybe some people in your same position may not have to deal with. So
yes, and I think here too, we prepare for little storms that come through in the summer. So those can be worse too, especially for our system. We do water, wastewater, and natural gas. So we want to make sure that all of that is operating correctly, and we have a storm team that helps prepare for that. And we recently, back in February, did a crisis communication training, which really helped. And we did scenarios to play certain things out that really helped the team.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent and big believer in, learning from your history and that kind of thing. So you mentioned it's been almost 7 years since you've been in this position. So if you could go back and tell Sam on day one of her job, one thing that you wish you'd known back then, what would it be? What advice would you give yourself 7 years back?
You got this. There's sometimes it's questionable, and there are sometimes that I do question myself, but I think I've earned a lot of confidence just in going through certain situations of like holding my head high, even when it's hard, and just moving forward and knowing that I have the proper tools and training and I've learned certain things and just giving myself more credit, I guess, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's confidence, I guess, really is the underlying word there. And I've thought the same thing, and I've got two children, 20 and 18, and I want them to be self-confident and confident in their abilities. And I think that's a great quality to have, to believe in yourself. So I think that's absolutely great. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will instill that in my daughter from early ages for sure.
Excellent. All right, leadership. So let's talk about that for a minute. So when I say the word leader, what thoughts does that invoke?
I think somebody who shows compassion and empathy. There's just so many different aspects to it. Someone who allows you to be creative, not a micromanager that lets you have a seat at the table and appreciates your opinion and values your opinion and takes it into account, and who builds influence with their employees. Yeah.
Has that view changed over the years? I mean, can you look back, 20 years ago and think my view of a leader and what I thought a leader was X and now it's Y? How has that changed over your life?
I think so. I think before, I see it more as a business, but now I see it more as the people. The personable side of it. Are they reaching out to the employees? Are they making an impact personally with them? Because I think once you show someone you're loyal to them, they show that they're loyal to you.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And I've definitely seen over the years what not to do.
Yeah, right.
And I look
right.
back on situations and I'm like, wow, that was unreal that this person did this. And I had no idea, I was young into the workforce. So it's just quite interesting. I'll remember some of these people forever for the things not to do, of course.
Yeah, that's good. And you're not the first person to say that. And sometimes you can learn more about kind of how to be a good leader by watching quote, a bad leader than you can the other way around. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that's good. So let me ask you this. Really, the crux of what you've talked about the last couple of questions is relationships. That theme has kind of come back around over and over again through various guests. So what is it about relationships that you think make a good leader, person being led team?
I think it's just showing that you care. I even know for myself, working for people that actually care about me and my family, first and foremost, making sure that we take care of our home life to come in to do a better job for them, and actually showing that they care in the workplace of your thoughts and your suggestions and things like that. I mean, if you come in and just demand things or just expect them and have no relationship, I don't think you'll get as much as you would if you showed them the empathy and compassion and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so along those lines, then who is someone that you can point to that embodies those characteristics? Who is somebody that you admire, somebody you look up to?
I don't have just one, though. Like, I take pieces, I guess.
I'll
from
take
people.
a list. Yeah, I'll take a list. That's fine.
So my aunt and uncle really started when I was in high school. I didn't really have the easiest childhood, and I got into some trouble, of course, but they guided me when I had no guidance or I had no idea where I wanted to go, and kind of pushed me to, you can do things, you can make yourself better, and whatever you put your passions and ideas to, you can accomplish. So them first and foremost, and then my husband, of course. He kind of put up with me all the years when I was looking for a job in college. So I have to give kudos to him for always supporting me and taking that role on as husband and father, because he's in the workforce too. So team there. But then one of my old bosses, I think, really pushed me. And sometimes he pushed me. I had no idea he was challenging me to be better and do different things. But he did allow me to have a seat at the table. I'm young. There are a lot of older managers at Daphne Utilities. So hearing a young woman come in was kind of interesting, but he did challenge me to have new ideas and things like that. And I was able to accomplish things there, be creative, and all sorts of things. And that just made me work harder for him, whether I was at work, at home, in social aspects. I was always promoting Daphne Utilities and the great company that they were because of who was running it.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to circle back to your aunt and uncle. One little sentence you put in here is that they believed in you before you believed in yourself.
Yes.
I think that's a great...
They did, because really in my high school, I had no idea. I didn't think about like college and life with kids and a career and things like that. So they definitely did instill that in me, and I appreciate them forever for that, for sure.
Well, I think it highlights the, I'm just going to call it the stick-to-itiveness, of people. I think a lot of times I'm not saying that you were diamond in the rough, but I'm just saying that kind of, that's just kind of a little cliche that people throw out. But I think sometimes people do see those types of people and they don't give up on them, and I think that's a great quality in them that then brings up and grows up great leaders and that kind of thing. So that's excellent.
I remember when I graduated college, it was a huge accomplishment for myself. And South, they had this certificate that you could present someone that has helped you along the way. And I presented it to my aunt. So I was so proud to do that for her.
That's great. That's great. Well, let me ask you this. You started a working mothers group called Lean In. Lean In, Lean-in, Lean In Daphne.
Yes.
What is that, number one? And then number two, why?
Okay, so I was in Leadership Baldwin this past year. I called it COVID leadership because we didn't get to finish. But I met a lady who told me about a book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. So I started reading it, and I was having a little bit of issues with leaning in, I guess, in the workplace. So I read it, and then I read that they had online platforms to help with small circles. So I looked into it and I made this small circle online, and I had no idea what I would do with it. Like I made it, I named it, and I left it alone. And someone reached out to me a few months later and was like, "Hey, I'd like to join your circle." And I was like, "What? Someone wants to join my circle?" So I actually then started. It was really, I think that was back in March because it was the middle of COVID, which I think it's been a really good time to start something like this. It was needed before, but especially during COVID. So Lean In offers a lot of help to start your circle, which I did, and I wanted to start it on the basis of working mothers because that's where I am right now, and I see a need for it. I think for so long, people wanted you to keep it separate. We would go to work, but I have just struggled with my toddler, getting her off to daycare, and the struggles of that are the first day that you take them to daycare or preschool. So, and then you go to work, and they expect you to be this person always on and not thinking about the other. Yeah. But that's just not how it is. Yeah. We're mothers, and it's intertwined. So I definitely started it for of that. And now I have about 15 members.
Okay.
Which is really great.
Yeah.
So we've had about, I think, 5 or 6 calls. We've just been doing Zoom calls right now because of COVID, which kind of works better because everybody can jump on. And I want it to be something easy for everyone. Yeah. I know for myself, I'm involved in a lot through work, and we are either looking for sponsorships or you're helping plan an event or something like that. And this, I wanted to just to be like almost like a getaway from others so that we could kind of vent, give advice, inspire, just discuss some things. And that's what we've done. And I've had a few speakers. And each time that I plan these things, I'm like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Oh my gosh, but I just feel like I've been led to do this. And they just turn out great. Like every time I get off, I'm like, wow, I'm just so excited that people actually care. And just last week, I had a guy reach out to me on Facebook. He wanted his wife to join. And I was like, this is so great. Like I had no idea that I would make an impact at all. And now that I can't wait to see where it goes.
That's great. Through this experience in this organization so far, what's the one thing that you've learned kind of that maybe you didn't know about being a successful career person and a mother at the same time?
I think just to give myself grace. Sometimes I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist because I don't want to be perfect, but I do want to be really good, and so I try to do that at work and home. And sometimes it's just not feasible. Yeah. Sometimes something's got to give a little bit. And I think COVID has helped me understand that a lot too, because my number one priority is my daughter, and that will always be. But my career is really important too. And I think I do both well. But again, giving yourself some grace, just kind of be like, okay, you don't have to do all of that. Just back off a little bit.
Yeah, a little self-forgiveness never hurt. I mean, COVID, we've mentioned it several times. So I've talked to some prior guests as well about some of the fluff, I guess, in life that COVID forced us to cut out, and maybe what are some things, or what is a thing or two that folks aren't going to bring back in that they were forced to cut out? So what about you? I mean, what have you been forced to cut out that you're not going to bring back into your life?
I think being a little bit more selfish with my family and our time. Before we were busy. We'd like to go a lot, but we are homebodies. We were homebodies before, but now we appreciate it more too. My husband travels for work, so he's been home since March, which has been really nice because he usually has not been home that much. And I think that's going to change for him. I don't think he'll be hitting the road as much as he was before, because a lot of they've been able to do over the phone, Zoom calls and stuff like that. Right. So that's going to be different for us. But I think just keeping our family together as a whole and spending that time together has been really great for us, for sure. All
right. So on the flip side, what's one thing that you have started doing or forced to do? Maybe it was something that you just picked up a hobby because you had all this free time in your hands. What's something that you picked up that you started doing in quarantine time, in COVID times, that you're not going to cut out, that you're going to keep doing?
Reading.
Okay.
I've never been a big reader, but I've read a lot of books in quarantine, which I'm like, okay, I like this person. So I definitely want to keep doing that. I don't want to lose that.
All right, we'll put a pin in that because we're going to come back to that in just a second. So
okay.
I've got one more COVID question because unfortunately, we still have to kind of weave this into the interview or discussion. And actually, I got this question. My son's girlfriend had an interview, and so they asked her this question. I thought it was great. What have you learned about yourself during quarantine? All this downtime, a lot of people have time for self-reflection and some introspection and that kind of thing. What have you learned about Sam that you maybe didn't know, or maybe has been highlighted?
I like the truth. Like just being open and kind of honest about your feelings and stuff like that. I'm a very emotional person, and I like to be transparent. So I've been trying to do more of that, just being kind of open and honest about my feelings about certain things, and just appreciating what I like, just small things around my house, and that self-care aspect, even if it's just a few minutes per day.
Yeah, that's great. Well, one thing about being open and honest with yourself is being, is self-awareness and being honest with yourself. So one thing that we ask you on your show primer is, what is one aspect or characteristic of a leader or leadership that you wanted to improve on? And you said leading in crisis, right? Well, you guys deal with crisis all the time, I would think, whether it's a hurricane or a storm or tornado or whatever that comes through. And that's just one example. There are many other, examples out there, I'm sure, that you could talk about. But what about leading in crisis is important, and then what of your specific leadership style do you want to improve on there?
So I think just being prepared and not losing control when we have a crisis, when we have something come in, because it's not like it's coming. Hurricanes are a little bit different, but certain situations we don't know. You walk into work that day and, they dropped this on your desk. Okay, let's get prepared. So I think just being prepared, and like I mentioned, the crisis communication training that we did back in February helped me tremendously. We had mini crisis last week, I guess I could call it. And I was able to breathe and take control, and I had my paperwork and press releases ready. So I felt prepared, I felt trained, and I had the confidence, which was really important. So I think just honing in on those skills. And when you present yourself in a room, you don't want to have, I've lost control of the situation or I'm freaking out. Like I need to take control. So I think that is definitely important and just kind of keeping up those skills.
Yeah, no doubt. So looking at your bio, you are very active in the community. And so community is obviously very important. Why is that? Being a working mother, you've got your daughter, being the communications director or manager of a large utility is not an easy task. So why do you also give your time to the community? Why is that important?
For a few reasons. I love people. I'm a people person. I get inspired and motivated by people and helping and things like that. But also I live here and it's important to me. It's important to our community and my company that I work for, but also as my family too. Mm-hmm. We always participate in coastal cleanup. Well, I live in Daphne now, so I want to make sure that I always help with that because that's our community. That's where we live, our neighborhood. So I think for, all those reasons, it's really important. And especially that I'm in position now to give back, I think that's really important to me because I've mentioned before how I grew up. I think about if someone maybe would have reached out, that would have made a little bit of a difference. But then again, I wouldn't be who I am today. But I do participate in the STEP program and the youth leadership program with the chamber. That's really important to me because you're reaching out to the youth. And I think that's very, very important that they see that people care about them and appreciate them and, want to hear what they have to say.
They're the generation coming up that's going to, lead this, not only our community, but in a broader sense, the country for years to come. And so investing in them is important. So if you're talking to a young person or if you can get a group of young people together, what is your maybe one piece of advice as they move through high school into college and then in their careers, vocations, whatever they would be, as they work in our community, in our country and lead this nation? What would your one piece of advice be to the young people listening today?
I think not everybody has the same path. I think a lot of people compare. You're seeing what other people do. One goes to college, one, goes to tech school. Your path is your path. Mm-hmm. And that's how you make a difference. You find out what you're passionate about and you just run with that.
Yeah, seeking that passion, that's a great thing. All right, let's circle back to books. So you're not a big reader before, but COVID's kind of forced you to start reading a little bit more. Yes. So can you, and it doesn't have to be leadership focused, it doesn't have to be, anything like that, but just can you point to an author or a book that you've enjoyed that's had an impact on you?
A few.
Okay. All right. If you give me a list.
Right now I'm reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is really interesting. And she does talk a lot about the self-truth and self-awareness and stuff like that. I recently finished The Gift of Forgiveness by Catherine Schwarzenegger Pratt. That was really interesting to hear stories about people who forgive. Some I can't imagine, but and then fiction is Emily Giffin. I love all of her books. And then of course the Lean In book by Sheryl Sandberg.
Okay, great. Forgiveness is an interesting concept. I just kind of want to land there for a minute. Maybe she talks about that in this book. I'm not sure. But forgiving other people, I think, is important, especially when you've been wrong. But forgiving yourself.
Yes.
For mistakes and failures and that kind of thing is a big one, too.
It is. That's really hard for me. Not even just myself, like forgiving others. I'm a grudge holder. Just admit it. That's just who I am. And I have to work on that because I feel like I hold, feelings in when I just need to accept it, forgive for myself, not even really for the other person. I've learned that's a hard lesson for me. Let it go for myself. Yeah. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great. Very good. So what about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts other than Playing Above the Line, obviously?
I started listening to Michelle Obama's podcast, and then along with the book, Catherine Schwarzenegger Pratt, she has podcasts too. So I listen to that a little bit, but I'm a music person. So at work, I listen to music all day.
I got you. All right. So what kind of music? What's on heavy rotation on Spotify?
Well, I like Christmas music. I listened to that the other day, but the new Taylor Swift soundtrack is really good. Yeah. And The Head and the Heart. My music is all over the place.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. We're going to do a little game of this or that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Pop or rock? Music. Sorry. Pop music or rock music?
Oh, pop.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, depends. Which has chocolate?
Okay. All right. Hot chocolate or coffee?
Hot chocolate.
Text message or phone call?
Text.
French or Spanish?
Spanish.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Spring or fall?
Fall.
Book or movie?
Movie.
Coke or Pepsi?
No, neither.
Okay. Comedy or horror?
Oh, comedy.
Hamburger or hot dogs?
Oh, hot dogs, but they're terrible for me.
Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Boat or airplane?
Boat.
Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Oh, man, that's so hard because I love the food. Christmas, though, the spirit of Christmas for sure.
All right. 4th of July or Valentine's Day?
4th of July.
T-shirt or sweater?
Oh, T-shirt or both. Come on. That's hard.
I know. This is this or that after all. Reading or writing?
Reading.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
50s music or 80s music?
80s.
I hear you. Witchers or wizards?
Witches.
All right, a few more. Burgers or tacos?
Tacos.
Roses or daisies?
Daisies.
Money or fame?
Neither.
Okay. Sweet or salty?
Oh, both. Mixed together.
Oh, gosh. Steak.
Sweet then.
Okay, all right. Steak or chicken?
Steak.
And Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
All right. See, we learned a lot about Sam in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, Sam, thanks. This has been great. You are quite an inspiration, and I know especially to your lean in folks with your circle that you have going there. So we appreciate you joining us, and best of luck to you in everything that you do.
Thank you all so much for having me.
And if you want to learn more about Sam and what she does, you can go to daphneutilities.com, and you can also find them on Facebook and LinkedIn. And of course, we'll put all their links in the show notes. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.